Have you seen this? How desperate were Democrats and the media for 4 more years of Joe Biden? Not Kamala Harris, not somebody with at least a pulse. How desperate were they for Joe Biden? They wanted Joe Biden for 4 more years so badly they were willing to do almost anything to make that happen. Take a look.
I talk to President Biden, regularly, sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years.
Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker. This is a very sharp president.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I mean, it's almost preposterous to watch that now with a straight face. If Joe Biden, president in name only for 4 years, was so sharp, why'd he drop out of the race? Who was really running the country and continuing to run the country? That was the plan. If Joe Biden somehow won the election against Donald Trump, whoever was running the country would continue to run and ruin the country, and Joe would continue to get all the credit, which is exactly what happened for the 4 years that he was there. But their plans were ruined on debate night in June 2024, when the state of the real Joe Biden was finally revealed to the rest of the world. That was 10 months ago. And Kamala would go on to lose the election on November the 5th, which was 5 months ago, almost to the day. Thank goodness that never happened. In fact, today, when somebody asked me, hey, can you prove that God's real? I say, look who's in the White House. If you want proof that God is real, look who is in the White House, sitting behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. And now, instead of a front man in charge of a shadow government, this is what's happening in that very same Oval Office.
Thank you for making this happen so quick. Anyone who's bought a concert ticket in the last decade, maybe 20 years, no matter what your politics are, knows it is a conundrum.
What's even more interesting is that we now have all of these books being written by so-called insiders, quoting people who were with Joe Biden on a daily basis when he was president. And frankly, it's disturbing to read, because all these people knew that Joe Biden was not there between the ears. But in their maniacal quest to hold on to power, they were willing to put the country through another 4 years of Joe Biden, which is exactly what they were planning to do, to the point where the Democratic Party now might not ever recover. And I mean that totally seriously. When this woman is the leader of your party, and she is right now, your party is in a great deal of trouble.
This is what I say. I say you got hoodwinked, and that's okay. That's okay. Because as I was just telling somebody just a minute ago, I have dated in my life. I know they've been talking about whether or not I'm married and all this other stuff. I'm not married, never married, okay? Just want to get that out there. But I have dated. And I will say, any of us that have ever dated, we've been hoodwinked a time or two. Where we just sat there and we thought that he was going to be so great for us because he sold us on all the things, or her, okay? And then we realized they ain't. That's where we are, and that's okay. What matters is that you wake up and you say, this is not the one for me.
That poor young fellow right there doesn't know who he's interviewing or what she's talking about. That's Jasmine Crockett. She's 44 years old, by the way. She looks good. She's certainly a nice-looking woman. But she's not some kid. She's 44 years old, single with no kids, which should just be the Democratic motto. It explains why Democrat policies are so out of step with the rest of the country. If you're single and you have no kids and you're 44, there's a greater issue. Do you really care about Trans Story Hour if you don't have kids? Probably not. Do you really care about illegal aliens raping children? Probably not. Do you really care about men playing in women's sports if you don't have kids and you're not married? Look, I'll let you decide at home, but I think the answer is no, given what we've seen. Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, 2 of the liberal justices on the Supreme Court, no kids. Cory Spartacus Booker, no kids. Maura Healey, AOC, no kids. And the list goes on of Democrats who are either single or have no kids, or both. And these are the people leading the Democratic Party right now. And these are the people pulling the strings behind the scenes when Joe Biden was president. Over the next 10 days, at least 4 books are going to be published talking about the collapse of the Biden campaign and the Biden presidency. And Ron Klain, former White House chief of staff, said that when Joe Biden was getting ready to debate Donald Trump, he was, quote, out of it. And Ron Klain was worried that Joe Biden thought that he was president of NATO. Did you hear that? In June of last year, the former White House chief of staff was apparently concerned that Joe Biden, who was very much running for president, did not know he was president of the United States. He thought he was president of NATO. And no one said a word at the time. No one said anything. Ron Klain went on to say that when, quote, we sat around the table, Biden had his answers on cards and he was just extremely exhausted, Klain said. And I was struck by how out of touch with American politics he was. He was just very, very focused on his interactions with NATO leaders. He went on to say he, quote, wondered half seriously if Biden thought he was president of NATO instead of the United States. And they told us, they told you for years that Joe Biden, this pathetic man, was somehow prepared to serve another 4 years as president. All of this, and nobody said a word publicly. Nobody alerted the media, even though, of course, we all knew. At Newsmax, we talked about it all the time. Clearly, something was wrong with Joe Biden. It doesn't take a doctor to diagnose that. But nobody said anything, which, to me, borders on criminal. And as a result, this is what happened in June on debate night. Take a look.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, and I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
The cover-up of the new century, without question. And the media were all in on it. And all of these ridiculous books coming out right now are all a joke. Where were these books a year ago? Where were these books 2 years ago? Where were these books in 2020? These people are so corrupt that if that debate never happened and Joe Biden somehow went on to win the election in November, half this country and the media and every elected Democrat in Washington would still happily be living that lie. This lie that somehow Joe Biden was ever fit to serve as our president. He was not. He was an embarrassment to himself and to this country. And if Kamala Harris ever wants to run for president seriously again, she needs to come clean with what she knew, what she saw, and why she never spoke up.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.